Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 245 of the J Situation Podcast. I'm recording this on January 28th, 2025. How are all you wonderful folks doing? Yeah, I just got back from the old Chacho. Yeah, it looks like I missed some severely cold weather, which is good. Not mad about that. Chacho was really great. To all of you folks I was able to meet with and see, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. It was pretty cool. For all the folks that I missed, of which there are definitely more than I planned on missing, I'm sorry about that. Sincerely sorry. Hopefully we link up again soon. I don't know. You know how that goes. You plan out what you're going to do, and if you can meet with every single person, that would be great. But there's just a finite time. Nothing personal, right? Just it was really booked. And so this may be a relatively heavy episode. I have 3 topics for you. First, an update to the rankings table on the website, which will hopefully help all of you. I really hope it helps you. And then topics 2 and 3 will be full technical discussions of the PTR VENT Spiritus 556i. That's a mouthful. Yeah, that's the Inconel vent silencer from PTR that we published a couple of weeks back before SHOT Show, right? We published 2 articles for you, the Mark 18 and the M4. So we'll go through that in excruciating detail today. Remember, please use the timestamps if you want. Okay? Grab a beverage, strap in. It's going to get deep. Okay? So if you've been here before, you know that, and welcome back. If you're new to the podcast, welcome, and we're glad to have you. Don't forget about the timestamps, and if you want to hang around a little bit with me here in the beginning, I'm going to read you some ads. Why am I going to do that? Because the ads keep the podcast going, and it would be stupid not to read them. As always, the J Situation Podcast is proudly sponsored by Legion Athletics. That's correct, because nothing you do, exercise, sports, or anything is worth doing without consistency. You have to do things all the time if you want to be good at them. Okay, Legion Athletics can help you with that. They have whey protein, pre-workout, post-workout. Do they have everything you need? No one does. But they do have a lot of it, okay? Visit legionathletics.com. There's a link in the show notes. Code word PewScience to save 20% off your first order. If you keep using that code, you get 10% off forever. Using points, and who doesn't want to do that? Because you're going to keep buying protein, you're going to keep buying creatine, you're going to keep buying vitamins and minerals. They're minerals, Marie. They're minerals. It's a good show. Get strong. It's important. Very important. Episode also brought to you by Silencer Shop. Man, they put on a great party this year at SHOT Show. They had it was good. One of the better ones. It was very good. Silencer Shop has done a lot for the consumers. They've done a lot for the industry. They've done a lot for dealers, large and small, nationwide, which is pretty great. So if you're looking to get started in the space, they're worth checking out, whether you're a dealer or consumer. Okay, you can use their kiosk, do your fingerprints and photos electronically, and in turn, you will cut down on errors. You will simplify your silencer purchasing process. You'll get a money back guarantee, which is pretty crazy. So you won't pay any transfer fees. You won't have any paperwork errors. Just you and your silencer with no drama. Truly is silencer ownership simplified. And also, speaking of places to get silencers, Top Gun Range Houston, Kyle and his crew, they're amazing, okay? Because if you're passing through Houston, maybe you have a business trip, maybe you have some out-of-towners with you from Canada, and you can go show them some freedom. Go to their 15-lane indoor shooting range, have them pick out a firearm and a suppressed small arm weapon system from the largest firearm rental fleet in the whole state of Texas. And maybe they pick a pistol, a rifle, a shotgun, a machine gun. Maybe they pick a silencer they want to shoot, because you can do that at Top Gun Range. Gather it all up, go to the shooting bay, and go wild. Check out the inventory at topgunrange.com. You can also find them on Instagram at Top Gun Range. Please check them out. Let's say you're sitting on your couch and you're thinking, I want to buy a silencer, but I don't want to move. And also, when the silencer comes, I don't want to move either. I'm just a couch type person. Capital Armory might be able to help you with that. Did you know they have a large selection of silencers to help, and they help you with the painful paperwork? And you can order a silencer from your living room and have the silencer shipped directly to that same living room. That's right. If you live in one of the 42 states where silencers are legal, you can basically do that, okay? It really is that easy. Capital Armory, sponsorship directly to your door. Finally, this podcast is brought to you by the Pew Science Laboratory. I'm the technical director of the lab, and in the interest of public education, we have chosen to sponsor this podcast and run a public research effort. Our goal being to push the silencer industry forward one test at a time. And if you visit our website at pewscience.com, you will see the suppression rating. It is the simplest and the most accurate hearing safe rating for suppressed small arms based on true human inner ear response of the entire gunshot. That's right. From before the combustion takes place, all the way until all the combustion is gone and all the mechanical operation of the weapon system has ceased. The entire event. We like to look at the whole picture. We don't like to omit anything. And it's the home of the silencer sound standard. We actually created this for all of you. That's right. It contains 7 sections, and it contains the most in-depth and accurate silencer data and analysis in the entire world. And all of this is always available to the public 24/7 at pewscience.com. And you can support the podcast. You can support Pew Science. You can support all of the public testing we do by joining with a membership on the website. Keeps the lights on, helps keep this podcast going. And if you don't like recurring stuff, which is totally understandable, there's a donate feature on the review page. You can hit that. Maybe throw us a bone every once in a while, give $1, whatever you want. Maybe you don't want to give anything. Maybe times are tight and, inflation and, robot AI monsters have got you down and you're hunkering down for the new Armageddon. And you're going to save your pennies. I understand that, sir or ma'am. Something that's free and doesn't cost you anything. You can just spread the word. Give the podcast a good rating on the old Spotify or iTunes or the YouTubes or the Facebooks or wherever you choose to get your podcast. And let folks know that silencers and guns are awesome. Help normalize these as suppressed small arms. That's right. So like I said, 3 topics. We're going to go through topic 1, which is a rankings table refresh. There's colors in there now, and I know how people like colors. Topic 2, we're going to do PTR VENT on the Mark 18. That's Article 6.175. We're going to go deep. And then topic 3, we're going to go PTR VENT Spiritus on the M4, 6.176. We're going to go deep too. Going to go deep. We like going deep. So we're going to go into topic 1 at a time of 7 minutes and 35 seconds. Okay, very good. 1 moment. Okay. Man, SHOT Show was crazy. Didn't get sick. I knew I wasn't going to get sick because I was so sick before. It's like, nah, man, you can't get me sick. I've been sick for like 2 months. So I feel invincible right now, more or less. So topic 1, Pew Science rankings table refresh. I think we made it easier to use, made it more organized. It's color-coded with risk matrix. Please check out the update if you have not. It's in the public ranking section. It's in the member ranking section. And really, I have been meaning to update this for you folks. Kind of finally had time to sit down and do it. I really do hope that it's easier to use, like just at least a little bit easier to use. That was one of my main goals, but I have some other big goals for it too. Okay, so did make some updates. I have them listed here. I was going to go through them. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's basically 5 updates to the table. Some are simple, some are a little bit not simple. So the first one, the table was getting really, really big, right? Some of you you longtime Pew Science readers and podcast listeners will remember when there was only like a few entries in the table when we first started testing 22 back in 2020, right? There was like only a few. They're like, oh my gosh, that's interesting. There's only a few numbers. Well, now, now there's like almost 200 entries. So the table was getting really big. It was getting to be a problem on mobile devices. So we cut the table down to a maximum of 25 rows. And to view more rows, you have to turn the page at the bottom of the table with little arrows. And just to make sure people know that, I wrote it in red. So they see, oh, we have tested more than 25 things. There's almost 200. So they can just flip the little thingy. And so hopefully this will help folks not be overwhelmed. And also what's cool about it being smaller like this, besides being easier to use and see, is that on the members ranking page, you don't have to scroll as far down to get to your visualization tool that you guys use with the length and the weight sliders and everything. So hopefully that is more seamless for you. Second thing, which is actually really valuable, the row numbers are auto-populated in the first column of the table. That's like a thing that it auto does no matter what you have going on there. So this is going to help you know if something's ranked 5th or 15th, or whatever. And it works no matter what, depending on how you sort and filter the table, which is really important. Because I know you're not going to look at it in the default view all the time. You're going to, you might sort it in a different way and you might filter it in a different way. So you could have a list that's completely different than the default. So this will work with you to do that. They will always count your entire selected view. So if all 193 entries are shown, you'll have 193 rows and they'll be labeled to the pages. If you filter and sort in a way that only 10 rows are shown, it'll only count to 10. Easy? Cool. Third thing, there is now a column for the record number. Okay, so this shows you the actual number chronologically of when each entry was added to the standard. So no matter how many rows you have in the table in your view or what your filters are, unlike the row number, this one is just going to let you sort chronologically and tell you what came before or after what, just for your reference. So those are hard-coded because they're tied to each article and entry. You understand? Okay, so that's always going to show what it shows. That's the third. The fourth thing, so the way we used to have a hyperlink to every report, right? In its own column. So that was kind of wasting space because we had that, and then we had the so-called review number in a second column. So there are a couple problems. Wasting space with the link column because all the HTML in there, and then the review column was actually confusing people apparently, which I know. Believe me, there were like more than one person. Like there was a lot of people who were actually getting confused. Every once in a while, someone would, message us and be like, "Hey, so like, how come this one is like a quieter silencer or higher performance silencer, and its sound signature review is a lower number?" And it's like, well, because the review number is the review number. It's not a ranking. Like some people thought the sound signature review was like that article number was like a ranking of some kind. So to fix this, we place the silencer sound standard section number, which is 6, as a prefix to the article number as done in all the articles, and we hyperlink the whole thing. So now there's only one column. It's called report link, and it has all the report links and the designations of the exact report designations you're used to seeing. Hopefully this is sleeker and less confusing. Hopefully no one gets confused from that. And so the final change, and I think the biggest one, the most important thing, is the color coding of the suppression rating metrics. And so the colors are an exact match of what is in the suppression rating dose chart that you see in every article in the standard. And just so you know, so I know some people, they're conspiracy theorists, so they're gonna want to, I'm gonna put your conspiracy fears to rest, and I'm gonna tell you the way we did these colors in the table. Literally, the color palette is RGB matched to the conditional formatting exactly with hexadecimal code. It's mathematically and computationally perfect in the gradation. Okay, so what does that mean? That means that if you see a certain green color in the table, it matches that exact green color in the dose chart. And if you see like a rose red color, it does the same. Okay, and this is in addition to the numbers that have not changed, which, by the way, also perfectly match the dose chart, because these have always been for the dose chart, because that's what the suppression rating is. So this means that you now have both numbers and colors to tell you how dangerous something is. Okay, does that make sense? Because remember, guys and girls, the suppression rating numbers are literally risk metrics. They represent the likelihood of permanent hearing damage for a certain shot dose with unprotected ears. So please use them responsibly. don't ignore them. Don't do that. Okay. So I think this should have been displayed like this from the beginning. You know, like with the colors, I look back on it and I think, you know, I should have had these dang colors in here from the beginning. But I really wasn't sure. One reason we felt compelled to add the colors was to give you guys and gals a broader perspective and just have you think a little bit differently. Sometimes I see people get hung up on the shooter's ear ratings, for example, on the Mark 18. Yes, we all cheer when things get close to 30. Why? Well, because we're pushing the boundaries further than others have gone before, and who doesn't want to see higher performance, right? That's natural. I think we all do. But when you view that in context and realize a 31 and a 28 are different but relatively close on the chart and pretty close in color as well, it does help you understand that they are pretty close in risk, which means close in danger, which is what can really matter. Now, does that represent gassiness, blowback in your face, stuff like that? Well, not exactly. Is it a window into that, though? Well, in the research, we found that it can be. Yes, it can be. And we do find that shooter's ear ratings on the Mark 18 above like 25 or so, give or take, are really not high back pressure most of the time, which always gives us a warm fuzzy, right? I mean, I'm being general. Don't take the 25 number as a definite, but you understand what I'm saying? Like as you start to see that shooter's ear suppression rating creep up and get higher, which means lower risk, you kind of see, oh, maybe it's not that gassy. You know what I mean? And again, there's many complexities that I'm not speaking in absolutes. I'm just giving you an example of a trend you may notice when you examine this closely. Okay, so again, the rankings table is a tool, just like all of this stuff. These are tools. Okay, is this perfect? Well, no. But it's a huge step in the right direction. I think it's the biggest step that's ever been taken in this direction, I would argue. Since they started measuring signatures, right? I mean, it's often duplicated, or they try to duplicate it, right? Because it's so great. So if you have questions about this, please email us at tech@pewscience.com. That's TECH@pewscience.com. We will be, of course, happy to help you with your questions. So I hope you enjoy this update. I hope it helps you and your buddies. If you have feedback, please let me know. Like, if you hate this, please let me know. Like, we can always change. Like, nothing's set in stone, clearly. Okay. I think the changes are good, but I could also be missing something. Sometimes I see things a little bit differently than other people, and I could be missing something. Maybe you think maybe it should look differently than it does. And if not, I don't know. Let me know. Okay, cool. Very good. Topic 2 at a time of 18 minutes and 40 seconds. Okay, that was a good quick update for you. Excuse me. Yeah, I like the new rankings thing. I think it's actually it's also an experiment. I want to see if like it affects people in like certain psychological ways, and then like if it affects the market in certain ways too. Am I performing experiments on the public? Maybe. Topic 2, sound signature review 6175, the PTR VENT Spiritus 556i and the standard 10.3 inch Mark 18. The Vent series came back. Oh my God. Inconel, 6 inches long, extremely advanced. PTR took their military technology and was like, hold my beer. Look what I can do. Yeah, this was crazy. And I know a lot of you, we actually, and to one gentleman who sent us an email sent us an email and asked us to explain in detail how this worked. Sir, I have not responded to your email because I wanted to publish this podcast first. And then I'm going to respond to your email and I'm going to say, please listen to the podcast because I'm going to answer all your questions. I was at SHOT Show, so I couldn't answer you anyway. You know what I'm saying? Okay. So this is one of the more interesting test programs we performed. Just right up front, I'm going to say it. Huge thanks to PTR for trusting us to keep doing this. We definitely have a front row seat to characterizing the purposely induced porosity, the PIP. I don't think anyone outside PTR has the exposure to this quite like we do here at Pew Science, like due to the testing. So we are extremely honored to be able to do this. And I mean, frankly, like personally, it's fulfilling to me on a technical level. I am my research itch is scratched, if that makes sense. I mean, I do this for a living, so whenever I get to do cool stuff like this, I am pleased about it. So I take personal satisfaction in learning about technologies like this. Not everyone does, but I do. Excuse me. So I think it's important to talk a little bit about how this silencer is different from the previous vent series, or let me say that a different way. From the previous models you've seen in the vent series, because it's not like the other ones are going away or something. I think it's really important to talk about how it's different than the Vent 3, since that is the other dedicated 556 silencer, right? And it's different in several ways. So you have a different material. It's Inconel instead of titanium. You have a shorter length. As tested with mount and everything, it's 6.4 inches instead of 8.1 inches. And so, and another thing is you have much more radial venting at the distal end. And there was a slight error in the original report that we issued a couple weeks ago. We had a statement in there that the Spiritus was the first consumer silencer from PTR to feature PIP radial venting. I left out a word. I've changed that to say significant radial PIP venting. So this is the first consumer silencer from PTR to feature significant PIP radial venting, because if you look at it, there is in fact radial PIP venting on the end of the Vent 3, but not nearly to the degree that is on the Spiritus. The Spiritus has 12 vents around the end circumference. And that you can see them, especially in the photograph of the silver-colored unit that we tested. It's a little bit easier to see them because the production silencers are black, as God intended. So black silencers just look nice, right? So I know a lot of people like the silver ones too, and the brown ones because they're G.I. Joe, but black is cool. So this is article. Well, should we go? 1 second. I was going to go on and start going in the details, but what? I thought about a couple of different ways to explain this, because the radial venting, like before we leave the radial venting, it's actually a significant part of the technology, in my opinion. So what we're going to do, we'll go ahead. I'll tell you what. We'll go into the technical analysis of the test data right now. We'll keep the physical attributes of the silencer just in the back of your mind. Okay. The fact that it's hub compatible. We used a direct thread mount. It came with a mount, extremely similar to the mount that was used to test the Vent 3. Okay, you know all that. That's written in the article, and so. We'll just go into the article now, and we'll come back to the physical attributes as they are relevant to the performance. Okay, so Article 6175. This was the first in the 2-article series for the silencer. So please pull up Article 6.175 if you like, and you can follow along. Members, you can pull up the member review, and if you are not a member, that is, of course, totally fine. As always, just pull up the free public version and you can follow along if you want. No man, woman, or child left behind. Okay, so we'll start at the very top. Top colored graphic. Bottom line up front, 35.9 suppression rating, 1 meter left of the end cap of the silencer, 1.6 meters above the ground in the free field. 31.0 suppression rating, 6 inches right of the shooter's right ear, And that brings us to an overall composite suppression rating of 37.5 on the standard untuned Mark 18 with a 10.3-inch barrel, an 070 gas port, an H2 buffer, a standard carbine buffer spring, the stock in position 4 of 6, Lake City M193 ammunition. You see, I have to qualify with all this. Yes, because that's what we tested. And so there's your answer. That is your answer, the numbers I just told you. Okay, you could stop there if you like, but I think we should talk about how we got the answer. Yes, let's do that. Okay, so first of all, he doesn't tell us his methods. It's not peer reviewed. Oh my God. First of all, I will say 31.0 at the shooter's ear on an untuned standard Mark 18 is absolutely amazing. Right? And how do we know that? Well, we've been doing this for 5 years and not a lot of silencers hit that. It's amazing, dude. You typically don't see something like that. And so usually, what happens, right? Usually that only happens with Huxworks flow-through stuff, right? Yeah. There are certainly things out there you haven't seen. Trust. You'll see some things. There are certainly some things out there you haven't seen, but I will say this is a big deal, objectively. And so you ask yourself, well, how in the world is a silencer doing this? And how and why is it doing it with the muzzle suppression rating it's getting to? So it's getting 31 at the ear, which is wild, but then it's only getting 35.9 at the muzzle. So you're like, well, what's going on, right? You're kind of like, interesting. Like, wouldn't you expect the muzzle suppression rating to be a little bit higher given, like, this isn't a flow-through silencer like the Flow 556K, so why is the muzzle rating going higher? You know what I mean? You might be like, you might see the Vent 3 and you're like, oh, how come? Like, what happened? What happened? Yeah. Or maybe you're not surprised. Let's talk about it, right? Let's talk about the phenomena. So scroll down, if you would be so kind, to the first set of data plots. Keep scrolling until you see some squiggly lines. Okay? Let's look at the overall free field blast over pressure fingerprint of the system in Figure 1. Those of you who remember the Vent 3 in Article 135, which was 40 articles ago. Wait, is that true? Yeah. Because 4 plus 3 is 7. That's nuts, dude. Yeah. 40 articles ago, you saw the Vent 3, right? So if you go back in your memory banks, or maybe just go look at the article if you want, you're going to see some similar and some familiar things here in Article 175. But there's a twist. The Vent 3 was, like, for all intents and purposes, it was less severe at the muzzle, but it did behave in a similar way. Why? Well, there are a few reasons. The Vent 3 is longer. It has less distal venting, but it's using the same technology. So we're going to talk about one thing at a time, okay? This is kind of important to understand this holistically. The purposely induced porosity, the PIP, in the PTR silencers does a very special thing. When you look at the early time blast pressure history and the subsequent impulse traces, what you will notice is that the pressure is building in a very gradual way over a relatively spread out period of time and at a relatively low amplitude. Okay, this is because the blast load from the muzzle is being not only diverted and expanded and slowed by the baffle geometry, just like in a normal silencer, but it's also being forced through a lattice. Okay, the metal lattice of the PIP, you can sort of think of it like a dense sponge, kind of. Okay, so like as the blast load at high pressure and temperatures forced through the lattice, it slows down a lot, it cools a lot, and it expands into the lattice. And the resulting output is blast waves. You do get blast waves coming out of the lattice. That is true. But the nuance here, and there's a lot of nuance to all of this, so you're going to hear me say that word a lot today probably. The nuance here is that the very severe blast waves have been broken down into wavelets. And those wavelets are recombining and the particle velocity has now slowed significantly. So this is in direct contrast to something like a strict so-called flow-through silencer that is only made by Huxworks. Okay, in a Huxworks silencer, the particle velocity, that is the external particle velocity that comes out of the silencer, is ramped up very high, and that is one of the reasons the wave momentum is high enough such that the Huxworks silencers actually self-tighten on their left-hand threaded mounts. That's because their distal vents are angled such that the radial jet thrust literally forces the silencer to rotate and tighten on the mount. Okay? That is extremely smart by Huxworks, correct? Because it works really well. It's actually extremely awesome. It's actually one of my favorite features of Huxworks silencers. But what's one of the side effects of strong wave momentum? High particle velocity. We just talked about that, right? And the type of blast waves that are produced by that type of venting. What does that do? Well, significant potential for severe reflected loads. Okay, free field blast loads and reflected blast loads can be very different. Very different, you know? They can be a reflected load can be twice as severe as a free field load. That's true. And so when you look at the blast propagation from the PIP technology, you simply don't see that type of momentum in the data. And when you shoot it, you simply don't see it either, or you don't notice it either. You're not subjected to it either. You don't hear it either. Okay? And that is a big differentiator from flow through. And it's something that hybrid designs in general are good at doing. Okay? PTR is definitely not the only hybrid design silencer. It just so happens that PTR is just doing this in their own way with PIP. Okay? This isn't I'm trying to give you the general view of what's going on with the physics, okay? 1 second. Notice we haven't talked about decibels because that's a meaningless thing to say. We're talking about holistic behavior and physics of the system. Now look at figure 1b. Because there's a nuance. There it is again. There's a nuance to this particular silencer with PIP that you really need to be aware of. Okay, in figure 1b. See how after the first couple jets in that time history, you get this bigger combined jetting in both of the first shots, and only for shot 1 and shot 2 are plotted there, so you can more easily readable or discernible rather. So you see the bigger combined jetting after the initial couple jets, and that happened. I just want to let you know that happens in every shot. The reason for that secondary blast profile, and just as an aside, it does have a rise time. It's not a pure shock. It's about centrally peaked at a time of around 29.7 milliseconds in figure 1b. The reason for that secondary blast profile is the wave coalescence of the radial PIP vent load with the primary axial muzzle blast load. And guess what? The axial, there's also axial PIP load. So you actually have multiple wave sources combining here. You have the pure muzzle blast expansion, or what's left of it, coming out of the main bore. Yes. Then you have the main axial PIP venting coming out of the end cap PIP, which is like, because if you looked at end on at the end cap of the Spiritus, just like the other vents, there's PIP on the end cap, and then finally, excuse me. And then finally, you have the direct path radial PIP, those 12 vents, several of which are pointed directly at the pressure sensor, because you guys know this. The sensor is located 1 meter away from the bore line, right? Understand? So the radial vents are pointed directly at the sensor, 1 meter away. So, okay, it's getting complicated, yeah? This is complicated. So there's 3 blast sources right there, and that's not even counting the injection port. So what does this do to our data traces? Well, you can see them, right? It doesn't seem to be doing something radically inconsistent. I mean, you see the combined venting load after the first jetting, just like we talked about. You see that it's more severe than what you saw with the Vent 3. You can see that. But what you don't see is adverse impulse accumulation or artifacts in the impulse regime. You really don't see that. So just to illustrate that to you, please turn your attention to figure 2A and 2B. Okay? So 2B is just a little bit zoomed in with less shots so you can see things more easily. Okay? And then what that does is it helps to illustrate these consistency factors and the accumulation factors. So in figure 2B, you can see that because more PIP is used in the venting, the FRP tracks more closely with the subsequent shots than it did with the Vent 3. PIP is one of FRP's enemies, first round pop's enemies. If you are first round pop, if you see PIP coming, it's a bad day for you. Oh man, he's scary. Got to cross the street. No. Anyway, PIP will the purposely induced porosity. It will snuff flash and FRP very efficiently. Why? Why is that? Like, why would that be? Well, it breaks incoming waves into wavelets, like I was telling you, and does it very efficiently. And it will also essentially act as a flame arrestor in some situations. So you will not be able to get significant flash or FRP from a well-designed silencer that uses PIP. You're just not going to get that FRP. You will get some FRP, and you can see that in the data, but it's not going to be that perceptible to you, and the flash is like just really low. The more PIP that's used for distal venting, the more likely it is that blast load is like coaxed into the vent path instead of direct vent or direct bore vent. And so that's one of the reasons for the efficiency of this silencer and why you see what you see in the impulse waveforms. I mean, God, look at 2A, dude. It's a smooth operator. It's a smooth operator. Even with the damn vents pointing at the freaking pressure sensor, it's a smooth operator. That should be some foreshadowing for you. But it's like, what's he going to say? Alas, not everything is perfect in Spiritus land. No. Again, like it's important, I just really want to drive this point home. You are sending blast propagation directly toward the sensor. You are doing that. I mean, blast loads expand spherically in 3D space. So no matter what, if a blast load comes out of the end cap of a normal silencer, it's still coming toward the sensor. That's how we measure it. But in this case, you are sending it, you are porting it directly there. And when you do that, what happens? Well, the sensor says, okay, that means there's a blast load here. I'm going to respond and tell you what that pressure is doing. And the muzzle suppression rating drops. Yes? Wouldn't you agree that would be a reasonable outcome? It does. Okay, so you can't, I repeat, you can't expect to send direct blast load to a pressure sensor on axis and expect nothing to happen. Okay? It's simply impossible due to physics. So, why would it not affect it? Okay? And the nuance here, waiting for me to say that again. The nuance here is that this thing still has a muzzle suppression rating of 35.9. Okay, guys? Like, that means even with blast load venting in the direction of the sensor, it's still like, look at the rankings table. I think it's like in 8th place on the Mark 18 for muzzle suppression rating derived from that sensor. Like, and what's in first place? The Vent 3. Huh. You see what I'm saying? So like now, like if you look at the shooter's ear ratings and like sort them by that with Mark 18, we'll talk about that in a moment. But you see what I'm saying here? Like you notice a theme. So this is one of the big takeaways I want folks to understand here. The ratings are based on test measurements, guys. We don't just like pull these out of a hat, dude. They're literally from test measurements. That's the whole point of engineering analysis. We take the measurements, we do analysis of the measurements, and we give you a metric you can use. Pew Science is the only entity that gives you a metric you can actually use, right? You can't use the other stuff. You can't use the PTB. It doesn't mean anything to you, but the suppression rating definitely should mean something to you. It's written what it is. It's a metric. It's a damage risk criterion. Okay? So the ratings are based on test measurements, and as you've seen in the standard, I just want to make sure you understand this technically, what I'm going to tell you. As you have seen in the standard, as shown, displayed for almost 5 years now, these are point source measurements, right? We are not using a 16 sensor array for the tests you're viewing on this website publicly. Can we do that? Yes, of course we can. We could use 100 sensor arrays. And you can field as many sensors as you want to. You're only limited by money and time. Okay, it's only time and money. Okay. I mean, frankly, I recently did a test program with 40 sensors. Okay, was it fun? I mean, on paper it was fun. How about the data processing? Was that fun? What do you think? No, I'm kidding. It's kind of fun, but you know what I'm getting at, right? Like you get my point. The ratings are what they are because they're point measurements, and they're derived from what they are based upon the measurements. So if you shoot a bunch of guns, and one of the guns sends part of its blast load toward the place you're measuring in a different way than the other guns do, the measurement will be different. Does that mean the entire sound field is louder? Excellent question. That's $1 million question, really, because the answer is absolutely not. And how can we say that definitively? Like, how could you be so confident, Jay, in what you're saying? Well, let me tell you something, brother. No, for one thing, we shot the dang silencer, so there's that. And we have staff observing the tests as well. They're taking notes. So we have that anecdotal feedback in a controlled environment that we trust. But what else do we have? Don't take my word for it. Do we have anything quantitative? Well, yes. We have the shooter's ear data from their ear sensor. Oh, snap. What does that show? Well, it shows one of the highest shooter's ear suppression ratings on the Untuned Mark 18 ever calculated by our lab ever. Right? Write it down, put it on a t-shirt. It's in the rankings table. It's actually the third highest. And what's first, second, and fourth are Huxworks. Cat's in the mix at fifth. Then PTR again is back again at sixth. Are you noticing a theme? Is it only one company? No. Are there multiple companies able to do this? Yes. Is it a level playing field? Absolutely. Do you notice a theme of maybe flow through from Huxworks and then extreme performance hybrids from PTR and Cat? Who are the three most technologically advanced silencer companies right now in the standard? Like, without getting into a huge argument or war, like politics, most people would probably have PTR and Cat at like 1 or 2, and like Huxworks somewhere in there too. So there you go. I know a lot of you are very fervent brand loyalists, but objectively, these three brands are doing work when it comes to operator protection, yes. And efficacy of system performance holistically, yes. Do all three of them have their pluses and minuses? Probably. But, what do they say? The cream rises to the top or something? I mean, guys, we've been at this for almost 5 years. So eventually we're going to keep moving the sieve, and particles are going to fall through, and some are going to get caught. And then we're going to go to a finer sieve, and some particles are going to get caught. Then we're going to go to a finer sieve, and particles are going to get caught. And what do you get eventually when you're panning for gold? Okay, so the Spiritus silencer has a less intense sound field than its muzzle suppression rating reflects. I do think that's true. I'm sorry that it takes some analysis of the reader to come to that conclusion. I'm telling you that because I'm explaining it to you technically, but it might not be immediately apparent. And if you don't believe me, that is actually completely fine. In fact, I encourage you not to believe me. I don't want you to believe it at face value. I want go experience it. I urge you, if you don't want to take my word for this, which is fine, 110% fine, actually, don't. I want you to go shoot it and see what you think. Go to one of those public silencer shoots or go to your dealer. I don't care. Put on an untuned Mark 18 with the same configuration. Have your buddy shoot it. Walk around to different areas. See what you hear. Just be safe when you do it. I don't want you to be blasting yourself with unprotected ears like all day with like a suppression rating like this. But be smart. Go try it out, man. Like, you know, the shooter's ear suppression rating, and you members, I swear, you guys have some of the coolest data. You members, you're going to see the waveforms in your article in the full version at the shooter's ear. If you're not a member, don't worry. Don't worry if you can't see them. I'm going to try to help you visualize when you look at those, if you're a member, you're going to see clear signs of low ejection port blast to the point you might think it's a Huxworks silencer, but there are some signs that are there that show you that it's definitely not a Huxworks silencer, but first you might think it is. And to do this with a hybrid design, guys, I'm telling you, PTR is doing work here, and that's a big deal. And that's what you see in the rankings table when you sort by shooter's ear suppression rating, descending on the Mark 18. Hybrid designs coming for the operator protection and maintaining distal momentum control. This is why hybrid designs are so important in silencers right now in 2025. The PIP technology can vent, but it breaks up the waves into wavelets and it smooths the momentum accumulation like you see in the test data. It can do that with a high early time flow rate. It's not like this silencer is just behaving normally and venting. No. It's venting very early on in the process, and that is key to getting a weapon operating with low ejection port blast. PTR's doing it, CAT's doing it. They are both doing it differently than Huxworks is doing it. What is the major difference, guys? It's the end state. It's the distal flow. It's the particle velocity. It's the momentum control. It's the wave momentum. Okay? This is the difference. I'm going to keep hammering it home to you. So this is where we're sitting right now. Okay, now I want to talk about the venting on the distal end of the PTR silencer and why it's there. Okay, so I just talked about like the performance. Now I'm going to talk to you about design intent and internal physics and why the venting is needed where it is. Okay, 1 second. And this might blow some of your minds, or it might just be like duh, or you might be like what? So remember in our talk about the Vent 1, which is the PTR 308 bolt action silencer that everyone's like shooting right now. Remember, I think we had the technical discussion about that in episode 228. That was in September of last year, so not too long ago. Episode 228, topic 1. It was the technical discussion of report 160. Okay. In that episode, I spoke about various postulations of how the PIP technology and its implementation in the PTR silencers would behave in different combustion regimes, like maybe with subsonic ammunition, but also in different length envelopes, like if you made the silencer shorter, like because we were so impressed with the performance, we're like, well, what happens if you make it shorter? What happens if you put subs through it? We don't know. What's going to happen? So here's a thought experiment for you. Take a design in which you are forcing high pressure expanding combustion gases through a lattice and measure the output. Okay? What do you get? You get the Vent 3 stuff on the Mark 18, right? Or I'm sorry, Vent 3, the Vent 3 stuff on the Mark 18. You get super quiet. It's over 8 inches long, but super quiet nonetheless. Okay? Yeah, very long, very quiet. Very good. You've been there. You got the t-shirt. You understand that. You understand why the Vent 3 was very quiet on the Mark 18. You pushed pressure through a lattice. Now, I want you to chop 2 inches off the silencer. Okay. Ruh-roh. Now, you still have the same input pressure, but your output pressure is at a higher amplitude. And this is assuming that you have no more physical space to do work and you've squeezed your lemon pretty tightly in the design envelope. Like the silencer's not changing a lot, okay, so to speak. I'm trying to simplify this for you. What would you do with now you have that higher pressure at the end of your silencer? What do you do? Well, you have to put it somewhere if you want to be good and quiet, right? Are you just going to compromise, just cut off 2 inches of the silencer and let it vent to atmosphere the same way it vented before? Well, I mean, you kind of have to in some ways. I mean, you certainly have to vent a lot of it the same way. And why? Well, because the bullet has to still come out first. So you still have to vent out of that main hole. You have no choice. The bullet has to come out, so you have to let gas out too. That's okay. Makes sense. But what else could you do? Well, you could vent through PIP in the end cap too, right? But what if you already did that on a longer silencer? See, you already vented out of PIP at the end cap of the longer silencer. Okay, what else could you do? What other external surface area do you have to work with? What about the sides of the silencer? It's free real estate, right? So what's probably the most efficient place on the sides if you had to pick a place? Maybe the very end, radially, like around the outer circumference near the end cap, right? So you see, you can't get something from nothing. Now, could you work more magic on the inside of the silencer to avoid having to vent to the side? Sure, maybe to a point. But if you vent to the side and the end result is wavelet production from the primary blast waves and it's not too severe and the global sound field's still great and your suppression rating only drops minimally even when the vents are pointing directly at the sensor, what would you pick? Well, you'd probably vent through the damn side. And that's what they did. Okay, so you understand this is showing it's somewhat showing the bounds of the technology, and it's not the limit. Don't get me wrong. You can still engineer this thing. You can still squeeze the lemon. I'm just saying this is showing parameters that can be used and how they're used. I want you guys to understand this technically, because once you understand things, you're less likely to be fooled by all people. Okay. And so your brain starts crunching on this, and you're thinking of wild possibilities, right? What if you vented the whole damn side, like around the whole body of the silencer? And now I can talk about this. You guys saw the minigun silencer at SHOT Show. You got pictures of it. That's public. I can talk about that. You've seen that, so go look at it again. Go look closely at the minigun silencer. Okay, so that I can go on. Okay, so we're 52 minutes in. Okay, the topic's getting long. We haven't hit the M4 data yet. Oh, shit. All right, I'm going to kind of get moving here. Okay, scroll down in this report here, figure 5, a big bar chart written blue. Okay, so the silencer's in red letters. It's doing work. And this shows that, yes, you can use this technology shorter. Are there compromises? Well, I mean, sure. Is it working well? Well, objectively, yes. Objectively, it's working very well. Let's see. Scroll all the way down. I think research note. Yeah, research note 14 in the article. This is important. There's a statement that says this silencer represents a further evolutionary step in semi-automatic centerfire suppression technology. I believe that to be true. I believe that it is true objectively, and this is a step forward. And I think it's cool to showcase and see it. Now, this is not without its drawbacks. Okay, we're not everything is roses, and again, technologies have ebb and flow and pluses and minuses. So it's important to be aware of the positives. It's important to be aware of the negatives. It's not without its drawbacks. The PIP system undoubtedly will eventually clog with debris. But that's only if you let it go unchecked, right? So you need to follow the maintenance schedule. I can't give you an exact round count of clogging. Don't ask me for that. I don't have that. I can't give you the performance reduction when clogged or when partially clogged. I do not have that information for you. I can only assume that efficiency will drop when the PIP lattice is obstructed based on how physics works and heat transfer works and compressible flow works. Okay, that's all I can only postulate based on the rules of the universe. The heat transfer mechanisms will change. The flow mechanisms will change. Heat transfer and flow, those parameters govern the performance of the system in a very close fashion. Okay, so I do encourage you to contact the manufacturer, read their literature, read their advice, read their instruction manuals, follow their directives. They know what to do best. They make the stuff. Okay, I do think if you do that, you'll have a good time. and having a good time is what it's all about. I do urge you not to ignore this. Don't do that. Okay? If you have listened to this discussion and you now understand the physical mechanism of how this thing is producing what it's producing, you should infer that the lattice has to be unobstructed to perform at its best. Okay? Don't freak out. Just make sure you maintain the system as directed. Okay? I'm being very, hopefully I'm being very pragmatic with you and straightforward with you. I don't want you to not understand what I'm saying. Okay. I think that's fair. So now we've talked about how it works. We talked about the input pressure and how it affects the vent pressure. We talked about the maintenance. We talked about flow rate. We talked about how it's doing great on the standard routine Mark 18. Okay. Now let's do something else. Let's have a little fun. Let's change variables. Okay. Let's make the barrel longer so we reduce the input pressure. Oh, man. Let's make the gas port bigger. And let's make the dwell time longer to make the ejection port blast worse. Oh. Let's put it on the M4R3 mid-gas 14.5-inch rifle and report 176. And we will talk about it in topic 3 at a time of 55 minutes. And 55 seconds. Oh, 4 5s. It's an omen. One moment. I kind of rushed that final 5 just to get it right. Topic 3, sound signature review 6176. Same silencer. All we're doing is changing the weapon and completely changing the performance because that's what happens. Oh my God. He released 2 reports for a silencer. He's confusing us. Yeah, it might be. I mean, frankly, I might be confusing you every day. But I think this second report gave us a really amazing physical discovery. And boy, am I glad PTR chose to have us test this one too. Boy, do we understand this better now. Oh my goodness. So really, I do believe this. So here's another, again, this is a technical discussion. We're going to go deep, but not for too long because you already understand how the silencer works. I just want to tell you something really cool. So this is something that should really round out your understanding of the silencer. And please, if you didn't listen to the previous topic and at all, and you listen to this one, it's not going to be great. So listen to topic 2 at least. Okay. So again, this topic 3, this should really round out your understanding of the silencer. And it also should really help you understand how lattice structures work in silencers. God, I'm so happy about this. It's so great. Such great research. Again, if you just skipped to this topic and didn't listen to the primary technical discussion topic 2, it's fine. But we've already gone through Spiritus technical behavior on the Mark 18. We've explained exactly how it's working, exactly how the output manifests. In this topic, we're going to talk about what happens when you increase the barrel length by what, like 40% or so? Whatever it is, maybe more. You're going to increase the gas port size. You're going to increase the dwell time, which means you're moving the gas port orifice further away from the muzzle, which increases the dwell time, which is defined as the time it takes the bullet to travel from gas port to muzzle uncork. So the first thing, increasing the barrel length, that's a great thing for suppression. Most of the time, yes? Most of the time, right? Okay. The second thing, or the second 2 things, the gas port size and the dwell time, increasing those, that's seldom good for suppression. and definitely not good this time. Okay, so let's talk about what exactly happens quantitatively. Let's start at the top, bottom line up front. 44.0 muzzle suppression rating, 1 meter left of the end cap, 1.6 meters above the ground in the true free field. 26.1 shooter's ear suppression rating, 6 inches right of the shooter's right ear, for an overall composite suppression rating of 44.2. On the standard 14.5-inch M4A1 R3 mid-gas rifle with 0.76 gas port, buttstock position 4 of 6, H2 buffer, standard carbine buffer spring. So now a couple things are happening, right? You're like, whoa, you're screeching to a halt. Oh my God. You've changed your rifle. Same silencer, same mount, same ammo. Rifle change. Oh. Muzzle suppression rating jumped from 35.9 to 44.0. Non-trivial. Shooter's ear suppression rating actually decreased from 31 down to 26.1. Oh, interessante. Interesting, right? So you got less hazardous at the muzzle specifically less hazardous at the muzzle measurement location by quite a lot, and then you got a little more hazardous at the operator's head. Well, actually, by quite a lot too. What could be the reason for this? You're like changing dynamics. Oh my goodness. Well, the reason is weapon and silencer. They're both responsible for the performance increase and decrease at various locations. So let's get into it. Go down, if you'd be so kind. Now you can pull up Article 6176. This is the second article in the series. This is the M4 test. Make sure you are not still looking at the Article 6175 we just spoke about with the Mark 18 because you're going to be really confused. Pull up the latest one, 6176. Okay, please scroll down again to the pressure histories that were measured. Please look at Figure 1A and 1B. Scroll down till you get the squiggly lines. This, again, is blast overpressure in the free field. At the same measurement locations you saw in the Mark 18 test. Relative to that system, it's just this time it's a different gun. 1 meter left of the end cap, 1.6 meters above the ground. Very similar thing going on here. Why would it be similar? Well, it's the same dang silencer, but it's a different weapon. So what's happened? Well, the amplitude is reduced in this particular measurement in both the initial jetting and also in the subsequent radial jetting coalescence that you see after that initial jetting. It's almost like reducing the muzzle input pressure by lengthening the barrel by around 40% made a big difference in the direct venting. It's almost like that happened. Well, it is because it is what happened. It did make a big difference in what the PIP had to do at the very end of the silencer. Well, I mean, inside the silencer too, but the very end, that's the really important part here. Because remember the last topic, when I spoke about shortening these PIP silencers and then needing to vent elsewhere to take maximum advantage of PIP vent area, remember? Well, now you've gone in the opposite direction. Now the muzzle pressure input's lower, so the vents that you added, now they're acting more efficiently, and so efficiently that they're breaking things up into the wavelets that are barely propagating to the sensor in that direction compared with the Mark 18 case. So right away, this does answer one of our earlier questions about PIP tech and scaling by pressure in a gross sense. Last year, we postulated that there may be a direct correlation between input pressure and performance. Okay, and some people are like, well, duh. It's like, no, not duh. I mean, look at an RC2. RC2 doesn't behave like that. So we postulated that for PIP. It seems that postulation is holding true in this combustion regime with 556. And the next thing you will need to see is if you step the pressure way down and you start to subsonic pressures, like in subsonic 300 blackout, and I don't mean subsonic, like, be careful with that. Like, I don't mean the flow is subsonic. I mean, the ammunition is subsonic. You still have supersonic flows and subsonic ammunition. It's just that this way lower pressure. So if you step the pressure way down, like in the subsonic ammunition combustion regime, you need to see, are we still going to get gains? Like when you go, like, you know, PTR VENT 1 on 308 to PTR VENT 1 on 300 blackout. Like, so stay tuned for that, because that's your final piece of the puzzle, right? Because really, like, this test, like this M4 test, I'm sorry, this M4 test and the Mark 18 test, this is probably step 2 out of 3 of complete characterization of the basic behavior of PIP. Because I think step 1 was the VENT 1, 2, and 3 testing. You saw that all at once. That was, or not all at once, but like gradually. Those 3 silencers, I think that was step 1. I think this was step 2 with the Spiritus. And I think the Mark 18 and the M4 testing of the Spiritus was step 2. I think step 3 is going to be the subsonic 300 blackout testing to put a bow on it. For me. I think for me, at least, I think we're going to understand the tech pretty well. Now, does that mean the tech can improve and the models can't get higher performance or better? Well, no, I'm not saying that. Don't get it twisted. I'm not saying we're done with the technology. I'm saying it doesn't mean they can't get better. It just means in a gross sense, we have a great handle on PIP, like publicly. Like nobody else is showing this publicly. Nobody, dude. And you have a front row seat. It's crazy, right? So I think, and frankly, like Pew Science, and of course PTR, but Pew Science has We already have like a really great handle on PAP because we've seen more than you, but you're going to see the rest and you're going to have everything we do. So, well, not everything, but you're going to have most of the stuff we do. And so you're going to have the understanding we do. So everyone's going to know everything. It's going to be hunky-dory. We'll sing Kumbaya. And then we can move on to the next characterization because that's what we do. Once we learn how something works, it's like, okay, cool, got the t-shirt. Let's figure out this now. That's like what engineering is. So cool, right? And research. So now in this article, you see the pressure, which is pretty obvious here in figure 1. Now, go to the impulse in figure 2A. Look, we're almost done. Relax. Go to the impulse in figure 2A and in figure 2B. Very similar to the Mark 18 here, right? But just a little different due to lower pressure. Notice the momentum accumulation, super duper smooth and consistent now. Lower amplitude, very smooth. And you do see that the FRP has a higher differential rate, like it's running away faster, but look how perfectly and linearly the slope propagates. And it has a higher the FRP has a higher differential than it does on the Mark 18 in slope. But then look when it gets to peak, how peak amplitude, it almost perfectly plateaus. This is really showing the efficiency of the radial vents with a lower pressure input. I think the PIP is able to really do work with that pressure. And this now I'm going to get into a little bit of a not educated guess right now. So what I think this is probably showing is that the Mark 18 is pushing the radial vent to its like maximum efficiency and like probably past it, whereas the M4 is probably sitting in it's a region that like might be underutilizing capacity a little bit for the test, not necessarily in general. And so like I don't know what the exact barrel length would be for like peak efficiency for this design, but I will say like if you go longer barrel with this, I bet it keeps getting quieter, like to a point, right? Like I don't know where the point of diminishing returns is. Like I don't know like when it gets like, I don't know when it levels off, and like it'd be cool to find that like sometime for different technologies. But I bet you if you put this on like on a 16-inch or like a 20-inch, it'd be like really weird quiet. I think that's what I think. I don't know, or maybe it wouldn't be. Maybe it's like you're stuck around 50. I don't know where you're at, but that's my guess. So all of this shows you what's going on with elevating the muzzle suppression rating so high, right? So now let's talk about the other part of this that changed. So we talked about why the muzzle suppression rating got high. Now let's talk about the operator hazard. Let's talk about the shooter's ear suppression rating metric and why it dropped when we went from Mark 18 to M4. So unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, well, it's unfortunate or fortunate, depending on your point of view, really. This is a function of the host weapon. So it's very, very, very difficult to reduce operator risk on the M4 because it has a longer dwell time and a bigger gas port than the Mark 18. Okay, it's a hard weapon to deal with. I know you picked it, so it's your fault. No, just kidding. It's not your fault. It's physics' fault. So the Spiritus is doing great work here, but it's not able to negate that ejection port blast as much as it was on the Mark 18 because there's more of it. And it's at a disadvantage due to the dwell time and gas port size. There are features in the shooter's ear waveforms that members can see in the full report that show significant port jetting. Okay, and even though the FRP is like front loaded in the impulse, which we discovered was a great indicator too, which is like easy to see. If you look at the positive phase, like members, I know this is only member thing. I'm sorry, guys. Members, figure 4B, the label I put in figure 4B that terminates at approximately 31 milliseconds. If you look at that positive phase, it's kind of still going. So that's one thing is like, it's still there. Yeah, it's because there was extra momentum that isn't dying. And then when the momentum is not dying fast enough, then that is like, and it's look, the shooter's ear suppression rating on this isn't bad, but it's not like the 30 something it was on the Mark 18. And why? This is directly ejection port blast problems, and it's a gun thing, not a silencer thing. You feel me? So In other words, in very simple terms, the weapon simply won't give you what you want. So this is a textbook example of needing to tune the gun. Put an H3 buffer in it or shrink the gas port. I think a smaller gas port would probably be like pretty smart. That would be my opinion here. So when we get, let's scroll down more. Let's go to the system comparisons in figure 5, the red and the blue bar chart. It's a very small bar chart since there's not a ton published on the M4 yet. So on this one, you can clearly see that the Spiritus is crushing at the muzzle, right? Like 44. It's like, what? It's like pulling away, right? In the drag race. And the silencer's not that long, so that's a pretty big deal. I think it's a really viable design. I think it's going to impress people to hear it. Now, shooter's ear risk on this untuned gun, on this difficult host, a little bit higher than the flow, a little bit higher than the WB, which I think is reasonable. I think that makes sense. I think you'll understand that, especially if you shoot on this untuned host. Are there some things you could do to get that operator risk down and get that number higher? Well, yeah, I mean, I just told you, like the buffer and the port and stuff. Yeah, sure, but are there things you could do in the silencer? Well, yeah, but you would also you got to realize like how the PIP behaves and like what you're actually doing when you're lowering the pressure input, and like now, because you have to force things through a lattice, and you do need critical pressure to do that too. So it's like, you know what I mean? So it's like you have to turn some knobs. Well, what happens on the Mark 18 if you turn the knobs on this one? You're not sure, right? You got to be careful. Now you're getting into system optimization land with multiple variables. It's like, well, what weapon system are you tuning things for? Certain silencers are optimized for certain guns, right? Despite what, when a company, used to be, just get a 30 caliber silencer, put it on every gun you want, put it on 556, it's good, lower DB, 140, you're safe, right? Silencer industry for a decade, right? Now you're like, oh crap, like silencers are optimized for certain systems and barrel lengths, not only for calibers, but barrel lengths on calibers. What? It's true. When you actually have real data to quantify it, you'll see it's true. You gotta be careful. I'm not saying you have to care. I'm just telling you, like, if you're looking for bleeding edge optimization, hey, we're trying to figure that out. So all in all, I think, this is my opinion, I think this technology is pretty significantly advanced, and I think that opinion is shared by a lot of people. I'm not just saying that because I tested it and they're a client. I'm saying it because, like, objectively it is. Like, it is, dude. Like I said before, the cleaning is super important. Other than the cleaning, dude, this is Inconel, so go nuts. I mean, I think it has a good weight, size, low flash, low FRP. PIP's doing work. I love that it's a hybrid design. I love that it's not like, screaming particle velocity at the end. I'm just really like not a huge fan of that all the time. Sometimes I am, sometimes I'm not. I now that we have so many hybrid options on the market, I'm pretty stoked on them, just personally, because like I love that momentum control. I love that we can get high early time flow rate and not get super gassy and not affect weapon function and still have good momentum control with all these hybrid designs. I'm really a big fan of that. I think it shows technological advancement. That means things like the PTR stuff, the CAT stuff, other advanced high flow designs, I think they're going to be better around reflecting surfaces. They're going to be better in different environments than the pure flow through Huxwork stuff. So if you are not out in the open, like if you're not out in the open, like away from other surfaces, hybrid designs can give you the answer you may be looking for, like, because you might be near something and you might need something that controls that momentum. The fact that we have so many really advanced hybrids out like right now that you can buy is really cool. And I think there's going to be more that are coming, which is also great. I know there are more coming, which is also great. There's so many companies, so many options. I think consumers are winning. I think you guys are going to get tired of winning. You might be winning so much. I don't know. That might not be true. Like, who gets tired of winning? Like, I don't know. I don't. Big thanks to PTR again for trusting the Pew Science Laboratory to perform this work. Please stay tuned for all kinds of new stuff this year. It's going to be wild. So thanks for listening. I really hope this podcast was informative. I know I went kind of fast and we had covered a lot, but If you have any questions, let me know. The articles are there, but like this is good research, right? I learned a ton from this. It's cool. I think we're gonna publish some more data next week. I think that's prudent. We'll see what we do. Okay, it'll be fun. Stay safe out there. I will talk with you folks again soon.